Prophet Ibrahim's Asas stands as one of the greatest examples of faith, trust, and devotion in human history. His life was a series of divine tests meant to shape him into a leader for all nations. But among these trials, none was more profound than the command to sacrifice his beloved son, Ismail as. This was not just a test of obedience, it was the ultimate test of love, submission, and belief in Allah's infinite wisdom. Ibrahim as had longed for a child for many years, and when Allah finally blessed him with Ismail's as in his old age, his heart was filled with gratitude. Yet, when the time came for his faith to be tested, that very blessing became the subject of sacrifice. When Prophet Ibrahim as began seeing repeated dreams of sacrificing his son, he immediately understood that this was no ordinary vision. It was a divine command. For a prophet, revelation often comes through dreams, and Ibrahim as never doubted their truth. The natural instinct of any father would be to resist such a command, to question its meaning, or to seek an alternative. But Prophet Ibrahim as did not question Allah for a moment. His heart was firm in the belief that the Creator never commands injustice, and that obedience to Him, even in the face of unbearable pain, leads only to goodness. With a heavy yet faithful heart, Ibrahim as shared the dream with his young son. What followed was one of the most remarkable moments in history. Instead of fear or hesitation, Ismail's as responded with unwavering submission, saying, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among those who are patient." These words reflect a depth of faith far beyond his years. It was not only a test of Ibrahim's obedience, but also a reflection of the spiritual strength that ran in his family, a family chosen by Allah for their righteousness. As father and son journeyed to the place of sacrifice, Shaitan tried to interfere, whispering doubts into Ibrahim's heart. He tempted him to disobey, to save his son, to question the purpose behind this command. But Ibrahim as threw stones at Shaitan to drive him away, symbolizing his rejection of all doubt and temptation. This act later became part of the rituals of Hajj, reminding believers to reject evil and stand firm in faith, just as Ibrahim did. When they finally reached the place of sacrifice, Ibrahim as laid his son down, his hands trembling yet steadfast. He covered Ismail's eyes, not because he doubted, but because he feared his love might overwhelm his resolve. At that moment, his knife was raised, his heart was broken, and his soul was surrendered completely to Allah. And just as he was about to fulfill the command, Allah intervened, calling out that the test had been completed. A ram was sent from the heavens to be sacrificed in place of Ismail as. The act of obedience was all that Allah required. The intention and submission were enough to prove Ibrahim's sincerity. Through this trial, Allah established that true faith is not in words, but in actions that align with divine will. Prophet Ibrahim as demonstrated that complete trust in Allah means surrendering even the dearest of one's possessions for his sake. This story became a timeless symbol of faith, echoed every year during al-Adha, where Muslims around the world remember and honor the spirit of sacrifice. It teaches that obedience to Allah should never depend on comfort or logic. It should come from pure love and trust. The story of Ibrahim as reminds humanity that faith, when tested, must shine through obedience without question, for in that surrender lies the essence of true devotion. When Prophet Ibrahim's as saw a recurring dream commanding him to sacrifice his beloved son Ismail as, he knew deep within that this was not an ordinary vision. As a prophet of Allah, his dreams carried divine truth. Yet, the message was profound and heartbreaking. A command that would test the very core of his faith, love and submission. Ibrahim's as had long prayed for a child, and Allah had blessed him with Ismail's as in his old age. That blessing had filled his home with light, joy, and purpose. Now, the very child who represented years of longing was the subject of a command that defied all human understanding. Despite the immense emotional struggle, Prophet Ibrahim as did not question Allah. His heart trembled, but his faith remained unshaken. He knew that Allah's wisdom transcended all human reasoning. If Allah had commanded it, there was goodness hidden within it, even if it was painful beyond words. He reflected on the purpose of life itself, realizing that all blessings come from Allah and that true love must never compete with love for the Creator. Everything, including his son, belonged to Allah, and returning that trust when commanded was the purest form of submission. When Ibrahim A.S. approached Ismail's A.S. to share the vision, he did not force his decision upon him. Instead, he spoke gently, saying, "O my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. So, what do you think?" These words revealed the compassion and humility of a father who deeply loved his child. It was a moment that tested not only his obedience, but also his sincerity in nurturing his son's faith. He wished for Ismail A.S. to understand that this was not an act of cruelty, but a divine command, a trial of devotion that would earn Allah's pleasure. Ismail's A.S., though still young, responded with words that continue to echo through time. "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the steadfast." His response reflected the strength of his faith and the depth of his understanding of submission. He did not hesitate, argue, or seek escape. Instead, he comforted his father, showing maturity and conviction far beyond his years. Their exchange became a symbol of unity and obedience. Father and son standing together in full surrender to Allah's will. As the moment of sacrifice approached, the atmosphere was filled with silence and tears. Ibrahim's A.S. took Ismail A.S. to the place of sacrifice, his hands trembling yet firm with determination. Every step he took was heavy with emotion, but his heart was anchored in the remembrance of Allah. When he laid his son down, turning his face away so he would not see his pain, the heavens witnessed a level of obedience unparalleled in history. It was the moment when love for Allah triumphed over every earthly attachment. Then came the miracle that changed everything. As Prophet Ibrahim's A.S. prepared to fulfill the divine command, Allah called out to him, stopping the sacrifice. A ram was sent down as a replacement, signifying Allah's mercy and acceptance of their submission. The test was never about blood or loss. It was about proving the depth of faith, the willingness to surrender completely, and the trust that Allah's plan is always just. In that moment, Ibrahim's A.S. and Ismail's A.S. were elevated to the highest ranks of obedience. Their story became an eternal lesson for all believers, that faith demands complete trust even when the command seems impossible to bear. Through this divine dream, Allah showed humanity that true submission lies in obeying without question, trusting that every test brings us closer to Him. When Prophet Ibrahim's A.S. received the divine command to sacrifice his beloved son, Ismail's A.S., it was not only a test for a father's heart, but also for a son's faith. The moment he shared this vision with Ismail, it revealed one of the most powerful scenes of obedience ever recorded in history. There was no hesitation, no rebellion, and no fear from the young Ismail. Instead, his response was filled with serenity and unwavering belief in the wisdom of Allah. He said with complete calmness and conviction, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient." These few words carried a depth of faith that even many adults could not bear. Ismail, A.S. was not a small child without understanding. He was old enough to comprehend what sacrifice meant, that his life was being asked as an offering for the sake of Allah. Yet his heart was free from attachment to the world, because his upbringing had been rooted in trust and love for Allah. Growing up under the care of a prophet, he had learned that obedience to Allah was the highest form of worship. His willingness to accept the divine decree showed that submission to Allah's will is not limited by age or experience. It is born out of faith and spiritual maturity. The exchange between father and son was one of compassion and mutual devotion. Prophet Ibrahim A.S., though deeply emotional, did not hide the command from his son. He sought his son's understanding, not his consent, because the command was divine, not negotiable. Yet, the way Ismail, A.S. responded, brought comfort and strength to his father. It was as if the son's faith gave courage to the father's heart. The test that could have broken any human bond became the means through which both reached the highest level of spiritual excellence. As they prepared for the sacrifice, their steps were filled with peace. Every moment was a silent act of worship. The Quran describes their journey to the place of sacrifice as one of calm submission. There was no panic, no resistance, only obedience. Ismail's AS even asked his father to tie him gently and to turn away his face while carrying out the command so that neither hesitation nor emotion would interfere with fulfilling Allah's will. Such maturity and faith from a young boy are a reflection of divine strength granted only to those chosen by Allah. In that moment, both father and son became living examples of surrender. Ibrahim AS raised the knife, and Ismail's ASS lay still, both hearts filled with complete trust in Allah. It was not the blood that Allah wanted, but the sincerity behind their actions. The heavens witnessed their devotion, and before the blade could touch his son, Allah called out that the test had been fulfilled. A ram was sent as a substitute, and their obedience was accepted. This was not merely the end of a trial. It was the beginning of a legacy that would inspire generations of believers. Ismail's willingness to submit became a symbol of perfect faith, the kind of faith that places Allah above everything else. His story teaches that the essence of obedience lies not in understanding every command, but in trusting the one who commands. When believers face trials that seem beyond reason, they can remember Ismail's example: patience, surrender, and confidence that Allah's plan is always for the best. His silent courage and peaceful submission remind humanity that true strength lies in yielding to the Creator's will, and that real freedom comes through complete obedience to Allah. When Prophet Ibrahim AS prepared to carry out Allah's command to sacrifice his beloved son Ismail AS, the world witnessed one of the most powerful demonstrations of faith and obedience ever known. His heart must have been heavy, yet his trust in Allah was absolute. For years he had prayed for a son, and when Allah granted him Ismail's AS in his old age, the bond between them grew stronger each day. Yet when the divine command came through a dream, Ibrahim's AS did not question or delay. He understood that the command of Allah was not to be debated, but fulfilled with complete submission. As Ibrahim AS shared the dream with his young son, Ismail's AS responded with profound calm and maturity beyond his age. He said, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient." This reply showed that Ismail's AS himself was a believer of the highest rank. He did not resist or beg for mercy, but encouraged his father to obey the will of Allah. Together, they walked toward the place of sacrifice with hearts full of faith and lips filled with remembrance of Allah. Each step they took was a step away from worldly attachment and a step closer to divine acceptance. When they reached the appointed place, Prophet Ibrahim AS gently laid his son down, turning his face away to avoid hesitation. He placed the knife to his son's neck, calling upon Allah with complete sincerity. It was at that exact moment that Allah's mercy manifested in the most miraculous way. The command was fulfilled, not through death, but through divine substitution. Allah sent down a ram from paradise to be sacrificed in Ismail's place. This act was a clear sign that Allah does not desire the pain or blood of his servants. Rather, he desires the purity of their hearts and their willingness to obey. The divine substitution symbolizes the balance between justice and mercy in Allah's plan. The test was never meant to harm, but to purify. Ibrahim's AS had proven that his love for Allah surpassed every earthly bond. Ismail's AS had proven that his faith was as strong as his father's. Together, what they demonstrated what it means to submit entirely to the will of the Creator. Allah, in his infinite compassion, elevated them both, making their story a timeless lesson for all believers. This moment was not only a personal victory for Ibrahim AS, but a turning point for humanity. Allah made their obedience a lasting symbol of faith, enshrined forever in the rituals of Hajj and the celebration of al-Adha. Every year, when Muslims around the world sacrifice animals in remembrance of Ibrahim AS, They do so not out of tradition alone, but to renew their own commitment to obedience. The act is a reminder that sacrifice is not about losing something valuable, it is about gaining closeness to Allah through sincerity and devotion. The mercy shown by Allah on that mountain continues to echo through generations. It reminds believers that Allah tests not to destroy, but to strengthen, not to take away, but to elevate. His mercy is greater than his wrath, and his wisdom surpasses human understanding. When a believer places full trust in Allah, even the heaviest trials become pathways to blessings. Prophet Ibrahim's AS test teaches that when faith is sincere, Allah's mercy will always descend in unexpected ways. The ram that replaced Ismail, AS, stands as a symbol of divine compassion, a testament that Allah rewards those who submit with love, patience, and unwavering trust. Through this act, the world learned that the essence of faith is not blind sacrifice, but obedience that flows from the heart, guided by the mercy of the Almighty. The story of Prophet Ibrahim AS and his son Ismail AS stands as one of the greatest demonstrations of faith, love, and sacrifice in the history of humankind. It is a story that transcends generations, reminding believers that obedience to Allah is the ultimate expression of devotion. The legacy of their unwavering submission lives on through Eid al-Adha, a sacred festival that commemorates not merely a historical event, but a timeless spiritual lesson, that true faith lies in surrendering one's will to Allah's divine command. When Prophet Ibrahim AS received the vision of sacrificing his son, it was not an ordinary dream. It was a divine test of his faith, a trial meant to prove his complete trust in Allah's plan. The emotional weight of such a command was beyond imagination. Ismail AS was not just his only son at the time, he was the fulfillment of years of longing and prayers. Yet when the command came, Prophet Ibrahim AS did not question it, hesitate, or seek to escape. His heart may have trembled, but his faith stood firm. He knew that the Creator who had blessed him with this child had the right to ask for his sacrifice. That unshakable submission is what made Ibrahim AS the friend of Allah. The test extended beyond Ibrahim AS. It was also a trial for his son. When he shared his vision with Ismail AS, the young boy responded with words that have echoed through history. "My father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient." In that moment, father and son became one in their faith, both willing to submit completely to the will of Allah. This powerful moment reflects the deepest meaning of Islam itself: submission, surrender, and obedience to the divine. As Prophet Ibrahim's ASS laid his son down and prepared to carry out the divine command, Allah, in his infinite mercy, replaced Ismail's ASS with a ram. The test had been completed. Allah was never in need of blood or sacrifice. He wanted to test their hearts. Through this act, Allah showed that what matters most is sincerity, devotion, and the willingness to obey him, even in the face of unbearable trials. It was not the physical sacrifice that held value, but the spiritual readiness to give up everything for the sake of Allah. Eid al-Adha, celebrated every year by Muslims across the world, keeps this profound story alive. When believers offer their sacrifice, they are not just performing a ritual, they are reliving the legacy of Prophet Ibrahim's AS and Ismail AS. Each act of sacrifice symbolizes submission, faith, and gratitude. It is a reminder that every blessing we have belongs to Allah, and that no attachment, no matter how precious, should ever surpass our love for him. The meat of the sacrifice is distributed among family, neighbors, and the poor, symbolizing compassion, unity, and the spirit of sharing that Islam promotes. The message of Eid al-Adha extends beyond the ritual itself. It calls every believer to reflect on their own lives, to ask whether they are truly submitting to Allah's will or holding on to worldly desires that distance them from him. True submission is not about words, but actions that reflect trust, patience, and devotion. Prophet Ibrahim's story teaches that faith sometimes demands letting go of what we love most, trusting that Allah's plan is always greater than our understanding. His unwavering obedience and Ismail's willingness to be sacrificed mark the height of faith, a faith that lives on in the heart of every believer who says, indeed, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. See through al-Adha, the legacy of submission continues, a legacy born from love, tested through sacrifice, and rewarded with divine mercy. The sacrifice of Prophet Ibrahim's AS stands as one of the most profound demonstrations of faith ever recorded in human history. It was not merely an event of physical sacrifice, but a deep spiritual submission to the will of Allah. When Allah commanded Prophet Ibrahim, AS, in a dream to sacrifice his beloved son Ismail, AS, the message was clear, yet the command was unlike any other. For a father to give up his child is beyond the limits of human comprehension. But Prophet Ibrahim, say AS, did not question, argue, or delay. His heart trembled as a father, but his faith as a prophet remained firm. He knew that the command of Allah always carries divine wisdom, even if it surpasses human understanding. In this story, the test of Ibrahim, AS represents the essence of true submission, the foundation of Islam itself. When he approached his son and gently explained the dream, Ismail's AS did not resist or protest. Instead, he displayed maturity beyond his years, responding with words that continue to echo through time. Oh, my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient. This exchange between father and son shows the power of shared faith and trust in Allah. It was not just Ibrahim's test, but Ismail's as well. Both were willing to surrender their most precious bond for the sake of their Creator, proving that love for Allah must always come before love for anyone or anything else. As Prophet Ibrahim AS prepared for the sacrifice, the world seemed to pause. Every step he took was filled with remembrance of Allah. Every heartbeat a struggle between emotion and obedience. Yet his trust never wavered. When he placed his son down, turned his face away, and raised the knife in submission to Allah's command, a miracle unfolded. The knife did not harm Ismail's AS. Instead, Allah sent down a ram to replace him. This act of divine intervention was not a cancellation of the command, but a sign of Allah's infinite mercy and acceptance of Ibrahim's sincerity. It proved that Allah desires not the blood of sacrifice, but the purity of intention and the depth of devotion. The story of Ibrahim AS and Ismail AS has become an eternal message for all believers. Every year during Eid al-Adha, Muslims remember their sacrifice by offering animals in the path of Allah. But the true essence of the ritual lies not in the physical act of slaughtering, but in the spiritual act of surrendering one's desires, ego, and attachments for the sake of Allah. The sacrifice symbolizes the struggle within every believer, the test of giving up what we love most for what Allah commands. Faith beyond logic means trusting Allah when the path seems unclear, obeying Him when emotions rebel, and believing in His wisdom even when the mind cannot comprehend. Prophet Ibrahim's AS story teaches that complete submission is not blind obedience, but enlightened trust. It is the realization that Allah's plan is perfect, even when it challenges our understanding of love, loss, and purpose. The story reminds us that true faith is proven not when things make sense, but when we remain steadfast despite uncertainty. In every generation, believers face their own form of sacrifice, leaving behind what they love for the sake of Allah, enduring hardships with patience, and choosing faith over fear. Prophet Ibrahim's AS showed that the ultimate act of worship is to surrender one's will entirely to Allah's will. His legacy lives on as a timeless reminder that faith is not about understanding every command, but trusting the one who commands. That is the eternal message. Faith that transcends logic, obedience that rises above emotion, and love that leads to divine acceptance.